Hugo Estrada.
Sorry, I was on mute. What's the link to the social media where it will be shared live?
Let me share you in the chat.
Thank you.
We're going to be in SMIA or also in UPEP, Iram?
In SMIA, also in the university. Let me see where is the link.
Okay.
Hugo. Hola, Jesús. Hola a todos.
Hola.
Male support
Hola.
in the audience.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Nelly, ¿cuánto tiempo sin verte?
Hola, Hugo. Sí, estás.
Mucho
Igualmente.
gusto.
Everybody ready?
Todavía no comienza la transmisión, ¿verdad? Es que estoy en mi cuenta para compartirla en cuanto comience, pero bueno.
Marley, it will be a tradition to have you in Mikai.
Mikai?
2 years in a row.
Yes, that's true. I'm very
It's
happy
great.
for that.
Always a pleasure to have her.
Yes.
My pleasure to be here.
Next year, where will we be, Mikai?
We still don't know.
Cyberspace.
Hopefully not. It's usually
Probably online.
yeah. Let's see. Yeah, the situation is so uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen next year with all the conferences. Well, really hard to plan anything.
I also share the link for another social media. We will be in both of these links. Okay, we can start now. Thank you very much for being here.
Okay. Good afternoon. I would like to greet all Mikai participants and welcome you to our panel, Women in Artificial Intelligence Beyond the Challenges, which take place in Mikai conference. Thank you all for coming to this session, and I especially thank our distinguished guests for being here with us. I also want to thank Dr. Alicia Martinez, Dr. Jasmine Hernandez, and Dr. Mirna Munoz for organizing this panel. First, I want to introduce our guests to the audience. Marley Vellasco received a Bachelor and Master's of Science degree in Electrical Engineering from the Pontifical Catholic University of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and a PhD degree in Computer Science from the University College London in 1992. She is the founder and the head of the Computational Intelligence and Robotics Laboratory at PUC Rio. Her research interests are related to computational intelligence methods and applications, including neural networks, fuzzy logic, and evolutionary computation applied to decision support systems, pattern classification, time series forecasting, control optimization, and data mining. Her research area is related to hybrid intelligent systems, developing neuroevolutionary and fuzzy evolutionary models based on quantum-inspired evolutionary algorithms and genetic programming. Professor Vellasco has served on the board of governors of the International Neural Network Society and is currently vice president of conferences of the IEEE Computational Intelligence Society. She is the author of 4 books and more than 400 scientific papers in the area of soft computing and machine learning. She has supervised more than 40 PhD theses, 85 master dissertations, and has coordinated more than 50 research projects with industry, some of them resulting in technology and innovation prizes. Thank you, Marley, for being here. Nelly Condori Fernández is an assistant professor from University of Coruña, Galicia, and research associate from Universidad, Amsterdam, Netherlands. She obtained her PhD degree at the Universidad Politécnica de Valencia, Spain. She was a postdoctoral Marie Curie researcher at the University of Twente. Her main research focuses on developing systematic approaches for developing sustainable software. Moreover, she has a particular interest in applying artificial intelligence techniques to software engineering activities. Nelly has been involved in several European projects. She has served as reviewer of several journals and international conferences for the software engineering community. Currently, she's a principal investigator of the CUSISQUA project founded by Fondesit and the World Bank. Thank you, Nelly. Cristina Martinez Pinto is an ambassador to C-Minds, an organization that advances public policy, creates new use cases, focuses on social impact, and deepens the ethical debate around the development and implementation of new technologies such as artificial intelligence. She has worked as a consultant for the World Bank in the global practice of digital development in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, responsible for supporting the Mexican diaspora in matters of gender and youth. She has extensive experience in the management of digital transformation projects, civic technology, and the facilitation of cross-sector collaborations. She has a master's degree from Georgetown University and is a member of the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers community. Thank you, Cristina, for being here. Jesus Favela is a professor of computer science at CICESE, Mexico, where he leads the mobile and ubiquitous healthcare laboratory. He holds a Bachelor of Science from the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México and Master of Science and PhD from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. His work focuses on the design and evaluation of mobile and ubiquitous technologies for healthcare, with emphasis on healthy aging and dementia care. Dr. Favela is a member of the Association of Computing Machinery and former president of the Mexican Computer Science Society. It's an honor to have all of you in this panel. Well, I will begin to tell us about our purposes of this panel. There has been many discussion on the challenges that women have to face when trying to pursue a career in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. These fields and also artificial intelligence remain with less participation of women than men. Women face obstacles in their way like stereotypes and discrimination, but also limitations due to personal characteristics. There are difficulties to pursue the career in STEM, to stay studying, and afterwards in the professional development. However, society is changing. And nowadays, it is possible to find successful women researchers, leaders, and entrepreneurs in technological areas, and in particular in artificial intelligence, such as Dr. Marley Vellasco, Dr. Nelly Condori, and Cristina Martinez. There are also men who recognize, stimulate, and support the work of women in their field and collaborate with them successfully, like Jesus Favela. The objective of this panel is to reflect on gender-related challenges and experiences of women who had succeeded in the field of artificial intelligence and in information technology positions, in order to better understand what is needed to encourage the participation of women in this field. In this session, I will ask a few questions to the panelists, and each will give you their point of view, experience, and reflections. We will receive questions for the other audience afterwards and give our concluding remarks. So let's get right into it. And I will begin with our first question for the panelists. First begin with Marley. Could you please briefly describe your work in artificial intelligence?
Well, hi. First, thank you again for the invitation to participate in this panel. It's really a pleasure for me to participate here in MICAI and this specific panel, although it's a difficult, let's say, subject in order to have and discuss all the challenges, but let's try. Well, regarding your first question, in terms of my research in AI, as you already introduced me, I work basically in the computation intelligence, basically with neural networks, fuzzy logic, and evolutionary computation, and applied to different, let's say, problems in time series forecasting, pattern recognition, classification problems, but most in developing hybrid models. Like I started with neural fuzzy models, and then I continue with fuzzy evolutionary models, fuzzy neuroevolutionary models, and more recently, neuroarchitecture search in order to find the best architecture of convolution or deep learning neural networks. And this has been applied to many different sectors like health, like industry, and other things. So basically, this is what I can describe, and I have a lab in the Catholic University of Rio de Janeiro. And I'm lucky because I have many students, female students, women and men. Of course, in the undergraduate course, it's not as well balanced, but in the postgrad, it's getting more balance year by year. So the lab has many women as well. So that's it.
Thank you, Marley. Nelly?
Thank you also for inviting me. I'm very delighted to be here with all of you in the MICAI panel. So I am particularly interested in providing methodological support for developing software that interact with other systems, devices, sensors, and especially with people. So thanks to the evolution of the wearable technology, this kind of systems that interact with many other systems or devices are more now able to exhibit some capabilities like adaptation. However, this kind of systems must also process knowledge, not only data, for being more proactive. the advance in artificial intelligence are dramatically, I think, impacting in the way how we are developing intelligent software, smart software, I would say. And this is also a challenge in the field of software engineering. In the beginnings of my research life, I started using neural network for solving some software engineering problems, specifically in software quality assessment. Currently, my research is focusing on how to exploit emotions for enhancing the quality of the user experience and also of the software service quality. So I defined a happiness framework. That is the name that I call it, happiness, like an ideal emotion, which use negative emotions as a main asset for triggering the evaluation of some potential services that might be causing some such negative emotions, like, for example, stress. So in this context, I'm interested in classification techniques that for detecting emotions, but also in applying fuzzy logic, like a set of fuzzy rules for defining based on certain quality dependencies, which can be implemented for evaluating the quality of the software services. So far, the happiness framework is being applied in the education sector, where I have the fortune to lead a research project in collaboration with the Universidad Nacional de San Agustín, Peru, and it involves a huge number of researchers, but with different backgrounds. And some of them comes from the artificial intelligence, others comes from the persuasive technology community, and for the software engineering community as well. So that will be, I think, in general, what I'm doing in this field.
Thank you very much, Nelly. Cristina, can you give us your word?
Of course. Thank you, Dr. Lourdes, for the invitation. I'm also honored to be sharing this virtual stage with such amazing experts. I think my background and trajectory differs from the rest of the panelists. We had spoken about this before. I'm not necessarily a researcher per se. However, the work I do related to artificial intelligence comes from a policy perspective, which I think it's very necessary and complementary. So basically what we've done together, we've had the opportunity to share panels, events, and so on with Dr. Lourdes and with other colleagues, is to share our experiences in becoming a bridge between sectors. Basically, we support, we talk to and try to understand what are the needs, what are the opportunities and challenges from the scientific community, to then translate it into policy or into legislative action or into knowledge sharing or into capacity building. And we do that with a perspective on contextualizing best practices, international best practices, but contextualizing them to the Mexican reality and to the reality that we have in Latin America that is different from other countries. I am an ambassador to an amazing organization. It's a young woman-led organization where what we basically do is we focus on systems change. And we recognize that the pieces to enable bold and meaningful changes, what we like to say, is exactly working through policy, legislation, the strengthening of the ecosystem, and to be able to actually scale a policy, we first start by introducing concepts, exploring them, and trying to little by little scale pilots. So So yeah, my background is a little bit different, but I'd like to think of myself more of a strategist and a connector between the best of these worlds.
Thank you very much, Cristina. It's also a very important job. Jesus, can you give us your work?
Yes, thank you, Lourdes. My work focuses on ubiquitous computing, mostly applied to healthcare. And within this, I've worked in intelligent user interfaces, activity and behavior recognition, affective computing, and more recently in the design and evaluation of social robots for dementia care. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the organizers for the invitation to participate in this panel. I must confess that I was somewhat reluctant to accept the invitation, since I thought I was basically taking the slot of a woman researcher in AI. But they told me they wanted a male perspective on the topic, so I jumped in. This also made me think about my credentials to be in this panel, which are not that many. But on the one hand, I helped organize the first workshop on women in computing from the Academia Mexicana de Computación a few years ago. But mostly I've been advisor and collaborator with very successful women researchers in AI and similar fields. And I think this has given me some sensibility in the topic, at least as much as one can get without actually being a woman. So in contrast with my fellow panelists, my comments and my positions will not be based on a first-hand experience, but mostly on a socialized sensibility on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jesus. We appreciate you being here with us. Well, I then will ask you first, what challenges have you experienced in your personal and professional life as a scientific woman in the field of artificial intelligence? I obviously will change the questions for Jesus, and I will ask you to answer from your point of view. What challenges do you think scientific women have to face in the field of artificial intelligence? And if these challenges are different from men, or have we some common challenges as working in this field? Marley, would you begin, please?
Yes, sure. Well, I think this is a very important question and a hard one to answer. Particularly in my case, I have been very lucky. I don't think I had too many problems actually in my career. But I think the challenges for women in terms of scientific research is not only specific for AI, in my point of view, is actually in any area of scientific research related to the areas of STEM in this area. And one of the main challenges I feel for myself is that we usually, women actually, I think usually is more, people expect more for women. And I think we at the end up expecting more or forcing us to do more. I feel that we are always trying to show that we can do things, and I don't see is a particular view, because my husband is also a researcher in a university, and we work together. We did our PhD together, and it has been easy for both of us. We were lucky in this case, but I feel that I have always more things to do, and I force myself to do more things. I always have to prove, not to others, but I think to myself as well. And another thing that is usually very problematic that happened with me, because I have 3 kids, and after I did my PhD, I decided to have kids, of course. I wanted to have kids. And although I was able to work and continue in the university and doing research, I also asked a lot of myself. I felt like I was doing 2 things and I wasn't dedicating myself as much as I was supposed to to the children. And it's something that is not from the society, it was from myself. And although I wanted to do both things, of course, and I always continue teaching, I never stopped teaching, I never stopped supervising students. But at the end, you feel guilty somehow. So basically the challenge is to make women aware that it's not, they don't need to do more. They are as capable as anybody to do the area of STEM, because it's also like a stereotype. I think Lourdes mentioned this on her introduction. We have a stereotype, and I know for my kids, for instance, I have two daughters, one son and two daughters, and I feel that her colleagues, they always feel that women, they have to go to the humanities, they don't know math. It's like a stereotype, and at least in my case, I always told them that they were able to do whatever they wanted, and they are very good in math, and they are very good in this. But it's something that the society, and not only from the men. So Jesus, I think your view is really important in this panel. And it's not something that men makes us, it's actually the whole society and women as well. It's not only from the men. So the basic, for me, the most challenging thing is to let those women, young researchers know that they don't need to do more than anybody. They have to do research, feel confident that they are able to do whatever they want, and don't feel guilty that they have many things to do, and take care of the family as well. I think, but actually one more thing, that although all these challenges related to research, I think, and I told already this to my students, the research area and working in academia might be one of the best jobs for women. Because for instance, in Brazil, we have difference in salaries for most companies and most jobs. And in academia is one of the few that it has no difference. You have the same position, you earn exactly the same amount. There is no difference whatsoever. And you can do your research, you can have your own time. So although we have the challenges from any other jobs, academia, I think, is one of the best for women.
Oh, very good. Marley, thank you very much. Nelly, would you please?
Yes, well, I totally agree with Marley. I have the same feeling as well, that some people expect maybe more from us. But in the other side, in my own experience as a foreigner researcher, I will say that that each time that I have to attend to any international conference or to do some research stays, the administrative process for getting the corresponding visas was one of the challenges that I have experienced in my personal life. I think this is because we live in a world where the visa restrictions are used most for government as a mechanism to control all the movements across the borders. And this kind of control affect to everyone who has a nationality from a third world country. In my case, I'm Peruvian, from Peru. However, I think after fighting with all this bureaucracy, all these problems, during almost many years of my life, I think this type of situations has also allowed me to be much more persevering and fighter to achieve my own goals. And I'm very, in that sense, I'm very grateful in having, in certain way, to affront this kind of challenge. No? that will be, I think, one of the challenges in my personal life. With respect to more specific, like a technical challenge in the field of artificial intelligence, more technical thing. I am not a researcher that actually work that having a direct contribution to the community of artificial intelligence, but as a scientific woman, I think I'm now working in the field of emotions. I think the lack of public emotion data sets with enough quality make me more challenging. Not only to build emotion detectors with good performance, but also to build emo-aware software systems that in which emotions are the main input for this kind of systems. And so we need a community that to create more open, really open data, and collaborate each other to facilitate our research, considering the quality of the data sets. So that will be for the professional, in the professional life, right?
Thank you, Mary. Cristina?
Yes, I related a lot to what Dr. Marley said on demanding too much of yourself, on being unstoppable. And it's something that we get said quite so often at C-Minds, and we take it as a compliment, like, wow, hey girls, you do so much, you're unstoppable, how do you do it, how do you manage it? And to be honest, we're glad to do it because we love our job, but it's exhausting. And sometimes we ask ourselves, like, why are we doing so much? Like, nobody asked us to do it, but we are going always for the next and next and next milestone. And I think it has to do with our personalities. Like, we found each other, we are a great team. We have these driven personalities that are always looking for more. And it's good, but sometimes we also question ourselves on don't being so harsh on ourselves, on getting more time to reflect on the things we're doing good, and also on this importance of the balance, on work-life balance, which is kind of tricky, and more in times of COVID and virtual environments. But I also think one of the challenges I have encountered is coming in the artificial intelligence community, is coming from the social sciences world. I think it has been quite challenging getting a seat at the table. And I really like a quote by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, by Justice Ginsburg, that said that women belong to all places where decisions are made. And I think it's really, really true. And if the spaces are not given to us, we must like take them, seize them. And in circles so tight as the artificial intelligence community in Mexico and in Latin America, which are very highly technical and mostly male dominated, I think it used to be a challenge to sit and to talk about the work that we're doing, and to explain how public policy is relevant for science and for scientists and for the work they're doing, and how it's complementary and how we're a team. I don't think it is a challenge anymore, because for the past 3 years, I think I've been building relations of trust and understanding exactly what are our complementarities and how can we develop new and collaborate around new projects together. So I don't think it's a challenge anymore. But I think something that relates to it, and that I've spoken with many of my colleagues, and that sometimes, and that we've reflected on how it kicks in, is this idea of the imposter syndrome, of asking ourselves, am I good enough? Am I prepared enough? And maybe it's not the best example, but something that helps me boost my confidence is when sometimes I see other people, mostly male colleagues or something at panels, and maybe they're speaking about something that makes no sense, and I'm like, wow, he displays such a confidence and he has no idea of what he's speaking. Like, why am I doubting myself? And then I become empowered, and then I feel great about what I'm doing. It shouldn't be that comparison what enables me to know my worth and value and my preparedness. But I think it happens, and often we have these like self-doubt that we shouldn't let us stop from doing what we do, and from knowing that we're doing it great, and that we are professionals, and that we are exactly trying to do more to prove it, trying to always show that we're doing more to prove that we are excellent professionals. And I think the last challenge, which also related to something about what Dr. Marley said, is I recently became a mother. I have a 6-month baby, and I've enjoyed it a lot. Motherhood is really fun, and I've had and it's been a nice environment to be well settled together with my husband. We've been sharing chores times and so on, so it's been great. But it's also been very challenging to find my way back to work, because I also feel this guilt of thinking like, well, somebody please take care of the baby, because now I want to focus on research and projects, and on getting my foot back again on the projects I was doing, on new ideas and so on. And then this guilt of I'm missing my baby's milestones. So I don't have an answer yet, because she's only 6 months old, but also I want her to see me and to see that she can do whatever she wants. And I want to keep working, and I want to keep realizing myself, and I want to have, like, again, the best of these both worlds. So I don't have an answer yet. I guess it comes with experience, but it's definitely both a personal and a professional challenge.
That's very true, Cristina. Hope you can balance your life, as you say. Jesus, can you give us your perspective, please?
Thank you. Yes, I would like to start precisely with the issue of maternity. I mean, there's a biological component to that. Science has not come to the point where we can, as a male, have a pregnancy. And there's also a societal component in which still, particularly in our countries, we contribute as male less to the care, not only of children, also of older adults, of our parents and grandparents. And this has become very, very clear in this pandemic. Every time you have a session like this, in which you have male and female collaborators, it's much more often that women will have kids dancing around or doing their homework, and again, caring for older adults has disproportionately a burden for female, and you know, nowadays they are buying groceries for their grandparents so that they don't leave home, or even bringing them home from nursing homes where they are more exposed, and there are public policy issues that we can try to do some adjustments on that. For instance, in Sweden, that there's paternity leave for 6 months, and they pay them 80% of their salary. And what's more interesting, more than the policy itself, is that the perception in society about this. If you just became a father and you go to work 1 week after that, everyone will see you badly. And this is the contrary, at least in Mexico. You know, they will see, you know, why are you not here? I mean, your wife is taking care of the children, right? And in Sweden is the complete opposite. So I'm confident that it's going to take a few years, a few decades perhaps, but someday we'll be there. An additional issue I would like to raise is that the lack of role models. And again, this is changing, perhaps slower than we think, but from the moment you got to university, even earlier, I mean, when you're in high school, of course, seeing, in this case, female researchers in AI changes your perception as to what you can do and where you belong. No, I felt a little bit of that myself. I felt a bit discriminated, not as a female, of course, but as a Latin American, as a Mexican. I've sometimes thought that I've been invited to panels or to editorial committees because they needed someone from Latin America. I'm not sure if this is true or not. This goes back to Cristina's point on the imposter syndrome. But I sometimes feel that way, and that's one of the ways in which I sympathize with women that might at some point feel that they don't belong there, and they have to be more bold, and they have to be more emphatic to make it clear that they belong there. And this is perhaps just in our minds. Most probably no one there in the room is questioning why we are there, but we are questioning ourselves, and hopefully this again is going to change in some time. And there's a very positive side of that, of being that bold. I think, and that's a belief I have, perhaps a prejudice, that women are less emphatic in emphasizing their professional achievements in general. They are more low-key, let's say. Perhaps this is just related to their own self-confidence, that they don't need to show off that much as we male sometimes do. But again, in terms of creating perceptions, in terms of creating role models, I think it is. I think that could help us, change some minds, attract some talent if we emphasize what successful women are doing.
Thank you very much, Jesus. This is very true, and your point is very, very, very enlightening. The next question is, in your opinion, what values and beliefs need to be promoted in our society to encourage women to pursue a research career?
Me first, right? The same order. Well, I think one of the issues, or one of the beliefs that need to be changed is one thing that Jesus actually mentioned, and I think it's a great example as how the society must view the women and the men in terms of jobs and sharing everything. But particularly, at least I think in Latin America, this idea, but I think it's everywhere, it's not only Latin America actually, but this view from the society and from everybody, and not only for male, female also see themselves that are not very well suited for mathematics, for STEM. This is something that I don't know why, how this was created, but I think, at least in Brazil, I feel a lot, and I see from my kids, I see the colleagues of my daughter that is actually now going to have exams to enter in the university. And I see when they speak, and even her colleagues, her female colleagues, they also say that. So somehow they believe that they are not suitable for following a STEM career, and I don't know why. So I think this is the main point that we need to start changing, and make females and women believe that they can choose and they are suited for following whatever career they want. It's not because they are women that they are not, that her brain is not suitable for some kind of career. It doesn't make any sense. And also the society needs to have that change in terms of perception that men should help. I think Latin America has more this view that the male is the head of the family and we stay at home. And So what he mentioned is completely true. In Brazil is the same. So if the father, after a week, does not show in the job, they will say, well, why he has not returned? And it's something that the society has to change and see, if you have returned, you were wrong, go home. So the view of the society has to change. So I think basically the beliefs is that the women has to be sure, and this idea that we goes to the previous question, that we need to feel more confident of ourselves, that we are able to do things and not push ourselves so hard. Because I agree with Cristina when she said sometimes you see a male speaking so confident, and you see that, well, what is he saying is not right, and I have the same feeling. Why don't I feel so confident of saying those things so proudly? So it's another thing that women needs to change, but it's hard. It's hard.
Nelly, please.
Okay, yeah. In my opinion, well, another value that will be commitment. I think these women need to stick our own passions, and even we have to face any adversity. We should have this kind of commitment to fight with our to make happen our dreams and goals. Another value that complements to commitment is the team spirit, in the sense that we should help each other, and in that way, a new woman that is joining to the community, it's important to guide them how they should start and what are the next steps, and work like a really team, right? And that will be another value. And now, as a teacher, I believe that when you feel good doing research, for example, doing your job that you really like, you radiate goodness. And I think this is very important to motivate our students to pursue the education, and also in any other career opportunities that are in the area of computer science in general. So I think it's very important to keep this motivation, but starting from us, from ourselves, then to propagate this to the rest of the people that are close to us. That's, I think, the last part that's all I have to say.
Cristina?
Yeah. Sorry, there was some noise behind. I was telling them to speak and not that loudly. Yeah, so I completely agree with Nelly on the value of teamwork, on the team spirit work. Also with Dr. Marley on how we need to change how society views men versus women work. And also something that Dr. Favela said that is very interesting is how we have to be more outspoken. Because something that I've seen with my friends, with myself, is that we as women, we expect everyone to notice what we do without saying that we're doing it. Just like for people to recognize the different things that we do, the projects we're in, or the abilities that we're learning. And we're not necessarily communicating that we have those. So we expect people, for example, in jobs, if you see when promotions happen, usually men get promoted more because they ask for promotions, and we women, we wait expecting for others to notice our hard work and then to get these promotions, and we don't get it, and we're like, what happened? Like, why didn't we get it if we did all that was expected? So maybe what was expected was exactly that we asked for it and we don't do it. I think we also should be promoting the values of diversity. There should be more diversity in the teams. There should be more women developing technology. As I said, there should be more women in decision-making spaces. And of course, the value of understanding and knowing and acknowledging that we can make anything that we set our minds to. Something interesting that happens, I think it has to do a lot with the messages we send to our kids, but the main gap starts around the age of 12 to 15 with girls, where they start getting more messages of the kind of paths that would be more suitable for them as women against men. And usually those paths lead us to social sciences, lead us to becoming nurses and not doctors, lead us to becoming, I don't know, there's a whole, I come from the social sciences world and I love it. There's nothing wrong with being that. But also recognizing that in terms of ability, we have the same, or even sometimes we display more ability at those ages, but then we start losing it because of those messages and believing that those fields aren't right for our girls. So I think the messaging needs to change from younger ages, and specifically in between the ages of 12 to 15. And something that I think it's really interesting that comes in the conversation, I know specifically here that the question is how to encourage women to pursue a research career, but I've seen it in other kinds of careers, historians or international affairs, like people saying like, no, I won't go into that because how can I make a living out of it? Like there's no jobs and it's I should go, I don't know, maybe into finance or consulting or something more profitable. And I think there comes an interesting conversation around success, like what does it mean for someone against another one? Because maybe for me, success means producing knowledge and contributing to the betterment of the world through the knowledge I'm producing. But for other people, it's more earning a higher salary, which can go both in hand, and it's also good. But it kind of saddens me when I hear people, since I have a bachelor in international affairs, when I hear people say like, no, don't study that, like it's worth nothing, like it won't get you anything. I'm like, well, actually it can lead you anything, anywhere you want to go. So it depends more on the kind of work that you want to do with the skills that you gain, not only earning a title like that won't lead you anything, but more the relationships that you build, the work that you want to do, understanding what are your strengths, what are your areas of opportunity, then strengthening those areas of opportunity, or maybe just focusing on strengthening even more of those that you already possess. So I think, just like to summarize, I think the messaging has to change. There's an area of opportunity to also on the systems change and how we perceive work from a women's and men's perspective, and also how do we define success and how do we share those messages with our younger generations.
Jesus, please.
Yes, I'd like to start commenting on a study that was conducted in the US a few years ago. It was an observational study, an ethnographic study in which the researchers went to math classes in elementary school, and they just observed the interactions and recorded the interactions between the teachers and the children. And what they found, and they also interviewed the teachers afterwards. And what they found is that the type of interaction that teachers had, both male and female, with students was different based on gender. And what happened is when a male, a boy, had problem solving one exercise, the teacher, male and woman, would push him and would push him to do more effort and to try again, and etc. In contrast, for girls, the teacher would say, "Oh, okay, don't worry, try another one," or something like that. And they interviewed the teachers afterwards, and they showed them this, and they were really surprised because they felt that they were themselves gender neutral, let's say, or they had no preference, and they treated everyone the same. So that's a very interesting finding, how these codes of gender are so pervasive and are so rooted in our in our culture. And of course, they are not nature; they are nurture. These are things we can change. So this goes to the issue of gender discourse and the type of metaphors we have, which all the panelists have already touched on that. So that we have some codes and expectations about the values and of what it means to be a male and what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a woman researcher and a male researcher. These are formed from childhood. For instance, I attended an elementary school which was only male. Fortunately, this is not that common nowadays in Mexico, and the most common thing is to have mixed groups. And those ideas were established in the late 1990s, in which the roles of men and women were more or were culturally established, let's say. And from that, we create these ideas so that men are better at this and women are better than that. Male are rude and strong, and women are sensible and emotional, and you know, it's pervasive in our culture. And sometimes women are, I think, feel forced or feel pressure to take these more masculine roles, to impose those or to gain a place in this forum. I had a somewhat similar experience. We had in the early years of our graduate programs in the mid-1990s, we had a German professor who used to come to teach help us teach a couple of courses in their master's program. And once one of the students told me, a couple of students actually told me that he said, you know, they told him, I mean, the teacher told them in the class, you know, Mexicans are not good at science. They are good at handcrafts and creating handcrafts. I was really offended by that. And I mean, he was an older guy. And I find some similarities between you know, how he perceived Mexicans in this case and how many of us perceive the role of women in different areas. There was a study in the 80s which was conducted with physicists, and again, it was an ethnography, and they were trying to understand how they refer to things and how they work with different devices and stuff. And sorry, I haven't. Where is that? And what they found is that they perceived machines and infrastructure and technology in general as having a male role. This was, of course, a few decades ago, but and it was in physics. But I think some of that can translate to computer science in general. Again, I'm hoping that this is changing, but this change is going to be very slow. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jesus. I think the next question has already been answered partially by you, but as a concluding remarks, I would like to say you that answer a question you about what is needed for women researchers to position themselves in the artificial intelligence science community and to achieve effective collaboration.
as you said, I think part of this question has already been answered because everything is related to what we have been discussing and pointing out. But as a summary for me, and I think it has been said by all the panelists, that first we need to be more confident. Women needs to be more confident in order for us to position ourselves as equal, as we are able to do the same kind of jobs and the same kind of research and be as, well, as good researcher as any other male. And we need to feel confident. First, it starts with ourselves and how we show ourselves, how we position ourselves in conferences. And we need to be confident and we need to feel, although somehow we feel that we are able, but we are always, as we have already stated, always trying to do more in order to show that we are indeed able to do this. We are, as if we are always trying to show and prove ourselves. So we don't need to do that. So we need to feel confident and position ourselves. And another important thing is to change the society somehow. And I agree with what Jesus said, it might take a while. Unfortunately, it's not something that we can change very quickly. And this study that he mentioned, it's really interesting to show that even a female teacher, without being aware, she was passing along the same kind of thought that males are more suitable for maths, physics, and STEM, and women don't. So it's intrinsic in the culture, in the way, although it's not conscious. It's not something that she has conscience. So we need to change that. And one thing that, at least in the area of AI and in the area of computational intelligence, what we can do is try to go, as Cristina said, we need to do that in the early stage. We need to go to the teenagers, because after they have already entered the university, they already know that they want to follow such career and they feel confident of doing. But we need to go in the early schools and the teenagers and show them and show what AI can do in a more, not naive, the correct word is not naive way, but more ludical way, more simpler way, and show them that it's something that it's interesting, they are able to follow if they want that career, it's something that they can do. So basically, I think it's something that we need to change the society, we need to change ourselves and to position ourselves more confidently. But I think that's it.
Very good summary, Marley. Nelly?
Although my research doesn't contribute directly to the artificial intelligence community, and I think, well, I agree with Marley that it's important to go for the early stages, like to work with teenagers and motivate them what is artificial intelligence or computer science. But I think also it's important to have a curriculum improvement plan in artificial intelligence, whose topics can be organized and integrated in other subjects, more like in a transversal way. Like, for example, data-driven software engineering course, or in the course of advanced information systems. So having that, I think we will be able to show also artificial intelligence as a big opportunity to solve real problems from our society. And I think women researchers would like to join to the scientific community for doing not only a master studies, also a PhD studies in more higher levels of education, because our empathy to social problems will be one of the main motivations. And I think artificial intelligence now has the power, I think, to do this, being integrated with other disciplines.
Okay, I think we need, thank you, yeah. I think we need more visibility. For example, I applaud this panel where we get to share the experiences with other women, but I also think that we should be better represented at events and panels, and that we should call out to manuals, for example. So it's funny how at the beginning of the panel, Dr. Favela said that he wasn't sure whether he would be a good fit to the panel. Well, you can imagine how we feel when we're the only woman in a panel with 6 men. And maybe the reason why we're there is what you said at the beginning. Maybe they invited me because I'm the only Latin American. Well, maybe they only invited me because I'm the only woman. And it's funny because usually I always go to events and I always find Dr. Lourdes and I always find the same circle of women speaking that we're invited, and we're like, hey, hi, how are you doing? But there should be more faces because there's a lot of women doing amazing work. So we need to have more visibility. Actually, it's interesting because every year for, well, this next year will be our 4th edition. We have been highlighting women in AI doing amazing work in Mexico and in Latin America. And this has become our most read and shared publication. So I think it's a good initiative because it's something that Dr. Favela was saying, we need more role models. And if we can showcase their work, then more women can see themselves in the future and say like, hey, I would want to be there. I didn't know I could become that. And get inspired by the trajectories of different women. But not only we only need more visibility of our work, I think we need more visibility of the problem, of this gender gap. I am part of the Global Shapers community of the Mexico City chapter, and we did a study on gender gap salary in Mexico City tech industry. And of course, we analyzed a lot of variables, but the only one that had impact and statistical significance was gender. Men are paid 20% more only because they're men, because we control for everything, experience, career, background, etc. And the difference was being a man or a woman to earn more or less. So what we're doing, okay, so we first had like this study and we said like, okay, the problem is real. Here are the numbers, here's the analysis. What do we do next? And what we've been doing is developing a series of workshops around salary negotiation. But I think at the core, what it has is the development of soft skills. Because of course, technical skills are really important to have highly competent professionals. But then what happens and what we've seen is that many women lack the confidence to speak about themselves, the experience to speak in panels, to become public speakers, for example, or other kind of critical skills for the 21st century that are relevant when we speak about the future of jobs. And we also saw this, we were doing an analysis, we at Siemens were doing an analysis at the Borderplex region on the opportunities, challenges for the use of artificial intelligence. And something very interesting that we found was that there was like this huge gap between regions on what's happening, like why do we have such talented professionals, both men and women, but they're not necessarily like getting into the next level of their professional careers. And a common thread around the discussions we had was that many of them were first generation Mexican American college graduates. So even though they had the best preparation, when they were faced into when they were faced like into a job interview, and they knew they were competing against others from other universities, they didn't have confidence in themselves. They thought they were like they weren't well prepared, that they weren't good enough. Again, the imposter syndrome. So I think it calls again to working at the core with at the core abilities, and to working with boosting the confidence and boosting these essential skills that our youth must have.
Thank you, Cristina.
Yes, briefly to emphasize one of Cristina's comments, just yesterday, Princeton University agreed to pay $1 million to female professors from a lawsuit from a few years ago, in which they were paying them less than male. And after a study, it was found, they didn't admit to that, but by paying $1 million, they didn't think they were going to win it though. So I would like to mention 3 points. One of them is I think we need to promote multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary research in AI. I think Europe in general does a much better work than this than in the US, when they are more Darwinistic and individualistic. And at least in Mexico, I'm guessing that it's somewhat similar in other Latin American countries. We are somewhat ambiguous about that. On the one hand, the calls for proposals emphasize multidisciplinary research and group research and doing more with less. But on the other hand, the individual evaluations, the Sistema Nacional de Investigadores in the case of Mexico, actually punishes people who collaborate in some instances. So I think that's one thing we should put some emphasis on that. An additional comment is I think AI is changing quite rapidly, and it's broadening its scope. I think we are becoming much closer to a reality that we were talking about in the 80s with expert systems and stuff, a reality in which many researchers in many fields, and actually professionals in many fields, are starting to use AI products sometimes as black boxes, but with some knowledge of it. I make an analogy with the statistics. I mean, there are many statistics experts in statistics who are not actually developing new methods, but for instance, they work in the health sciences or in marketing or whatever, and they know their statistics very well. They know how to design a good research. And some of that is starting to happen in AI. People, for instance, are creating data sets that can be used for training in tools like TensorFlow. And my prediction is that in 5 to 10 years, we'll be teaching these tools to engineering students and to science students in different fields, and not particularly in computer science, and also in the humanities, for instance. And so there's now more than ever room for people with backgrounds in philosophy, in ethics, in marketing, in many fields in artificial intelligence. There's not only a room for them, there's a need for them as AI becomes more pervasive in all our tasks. We need a balanced approach that has input from women and diversity in general. And this goes to my last point, in which the emphasis, of course, in this panel is in academia, is in research, but we also need more women in industry, in computer science in general, and artificial intelligence in particular. And this is critical, because they are designing the products that we use every day. And again, this is not perhaps explicit, but these products have codes that have gender bias. And when women are not involved in designing these products, it could be software, it could be a device or whatever, they are emphasizing those biases. So I think we need to do that as well. Thank
Jesus, do you have something to add or not?
No, that was it.
Okay, thank you very much. We now have time for some questions. They are still coming, but I would like to add some things. You have pointed out a lot of important aspects of this problem, but I would like to summarize the following. Although there are many external societal values and beliefs that hinder women's success, as Jesus said, most of the limitations are in our mind. We have to be more outspoken, we have to be more confident, and we also have to be aware of these external and internal beliefs and values, not to enforce them. We will change them if we all work with young women and men, also men, to change these values and begin transforming the society as we want. Not only in the problem of the gender discrimination and stereotypes, in other discriminations too, but I think all of your points are very important, but the main thing is that everything is in our mind. We can change only our minds. We cannot change the society at once. So if we work in that, we can, as we said, we work with young women and men, perhaps we can have a better place for our children in the society. Well, I don't know if we have some questions from the audience. Mariana?
Yes, we have one. It says, may you please also discuss how we as researchers can help young women to teach them how to code and involve them in STEM?
Someone can want to answer that? Would you better?
Yeah, I would say that I think just being visible. I mean, being there, that the children and the young girls see women researchers reaching to them. For instance, the publicity of our graduate programs or our bachelor's programs should have women there, photographs of women there in the computers and doing the different things. And just based on your previous comment, Lourdes, I wouldn't say that everything is on our minds. I think we also need policies, and we need to do some concrete actions. Yes. I do think that we should include in committees women, for instance, in the evaluation committees. One of the problems with evaluation committees is they are not just men. The people who are, and I'm in some evaluation committees, we are old. No, we're from a previous generation, and it's difficult to change our chips. So
that's true.
Sometimes we have to proactively say, okay, there's going to be half of them, it's going to be women. I mean, they might not have they might not be old enough to have all the credentials we want, but nevertheless, they should be there. We have to listen to them.
That's true, very true, Jesus.
And if I may add, I think we can also help your young women by being approachable. I'm always a champion on the use of LinkedIn as a tool for networking and to learn from people and to exchange ideas, because it has worked for me. It has opened opportunities, it has opened projects, collaborations, friendships. So I think being approachable is important so that young people know that they can speak to you, that you're not like an expert that is like completely unrelatable to them. Because if you have these kind of candid exchanges, and if you share where were you and what you did to become who you are, then it starts making sense to them, and they start reaching for more help, and then they start becoming spokeswomen themselves on yeah, okay, I received help, now I can help others. So it becomes like a chain of not of favors, but of a network that keeps expanding.
Very true. We have another question from the audience. Let me see. How to improve the condition of women in research, taking as a point of reference the double and triple burden that they usually have? So, someone wants to answer that? Perhaps you, Cristina, you have told us about the burdens.
I think it has to be recognized from the starting point, the differences that exist and the burdens that we have. If from the job descriptions we are able to differentiate what kind of burdens do women have additional to the specifics of a job, then jobs could be more balanced on understanding, for example, the importance of maternity leave, the importance of paternity leave, and then how those two come in place when, for example, having a baby, and how you need both in the cases where both parents are there, because there's also the additional challenge of single mothers, for example, that are carrying themselves and providing for their children, or and providing for their children. So I think it comes from the design and from the understanding of what are the needs for specific research positions, and what are the needs for the hours that will be allocated for projects, and understanding that if women at a certain point of their lives maybe will be participating in these kind of projects, then also realizing that probably the package, the how do you say, the social package of benefits that she will be needing will have other things into account that are important for us.
Thank you, Cristina. We have another question. Understand from Jesus Gonzalez, understanding like desarrollo de competencias, the sequence of have knowledge, abilities, and attitudes. Do you think that the women have to be more hands-on in order to be more confident and more team leader to get more values and attitudes? Marley, would you help us?
Yeah, I'm just reading the question regarding have to be more hands-on. The confidence is, I don't think it's related to being hands-on or not. So you can do different kinds of research, being more hands-on if you like, for instance, to develop applied research. In my case, I love it. I prefer applied research, but I don't think it's related, the confidence is not related to that. But I agree, in order to have more confidence, we need to set our minds and also change the society. And I think it's a bit related to the previous question, because although we have, for instance, maternity leave in Brazil, which is 6 months, and for men it's much less. I think it's 15 days or something. This is something that impacts in many things, like the difference in salary, because of course it's not only because of this, but many industries and companies, they give this as an excuse because women has to earn less, because they work less, because they have maternity leave. So it's a kind of a vicious circle. And so what we need to do is to divide and show the society that we need to divide the burden somehow. So the children is not only by the mother. Okay, we have to breastfeed, but there are thousands of other tasks that need the baby, that need to be done for the baby.
That's true.
And it has to be divided. as Dr. Favela mentioned. So if we show the society that the burden is not for the women, it's for both, then we can start having more women, and she will feel confident because she feels like it's being treated as equal. It's like a vicious circle that we need to try to cut it somehow.
That's true. That's true. Another question. Do you want to add something?
Yes, I would like to add because I think it's related also to the previous question and this one that I think that will be important to organize a kind of training events, training courses for developing some soft skills as well. Like, for example, I'm talking now in my own experience, time management. We already know that we have many responsibilities as a woman, that's not only to care our family, but also research, our other kind of activities or commitments or duties. But I think having this kind of courses, like I say, time management will be very helpful for really knowing what is have to do and what is less important, to have some kind of prioritization on your own list, to be also more results oriented, like time oriented, and I think having this kind of training, that will be also very nice for a woman in a university, for example, right, where we have more responsibilities. Each time we get more higher level, we need more time, but we just had less than 24 hours, so I think it's important.
Very good, Nelly. Now we have a very important question from Ana Bricia Galindo. She says, sometimes I feel a competition between women. How can we improve the collaboration between us?
Yeah.
And that's very true.
Yeah, I agree, and it's difficult because it's how we promote collaboration, not only among women, but how we promote collaboration in general. Yeah, it's a difficult question. I don't know if any other panelist knows how to answer.
Yeah, I'd like to add something on that. I think it has to go back to the evaluation system, and we have to not punish or diminish someone because, for instance, most of their publications are as co-authors or even, you know, they co-directed thesis and stuff like that. We have a kind of a joke here. I live near the border, and when you cross to the US, we always say it's better if you don't get an immigration officer who is from Mexico, because they are the worst. And I think that this sometimes happens with women and in every field. Sometimes there's this perception of those who are at the top that I got there by my own means and I'm going to be the gatekeeper. So no one else enters here. And I've seen this perception in evaluation committees, not particularly about women in general. You know, that I rose to the top. Now I'm going to make it harder for everyone to get there. But I've seen some of that with women in particular. That, you know, there's this hierarchy. I mean, this goes to the core of academic work. I mean, it's competitive. It's you know, it's Darwinian in a way. But I think this is something. I mean, science and research is a social construct. I mean, these are things that we can change, and we can find ways to value collaborative work. And I think something like in Sistema Nacional de Investigadores, SNI in Mexico, I don't have a clear way of doing that, but we need to find ways in which we promote whatever we value. And if we value collaboration and if we value cooperation in larger projects, we need to find ways in which we compensate for that. And we say, oh, you know, I mean, you're always, you're never the main author of publications, but you play a major role. You know, if you go back to the discovery of the structure of DNA, you know, how Rosalind Franklin was not given the Nobel Prize because also at the time her work was seen as technical. I mean, her role was key in the discovery of the structure of DNA, but it was underappreciated at the time. So we need to make concrete actions in that regard, and first go back and think what is that we really value, and what are the things, and then what is the incentive system that we want to create to foment you know, those values. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jesus.
I think there's enough room for many of us, for all of us to thrive. So to understand that that by helping each other, we're helping ourselves, because we are, again, expanding our network and we are collaborating in new projects. But what Dr. Favela just said is true. I've seen it as well. It's like it was so hard for someone to get to a certain position that you want to be the only one, and that you, at all costs, you want to be the gatekeeper and the soul that is getting the reflector, like the spotlight. But in my own experience, I found women from different backgrounds that have changed this way of thought, that are collaborating with each other, that are actually recognizing what are each other's strengths and understanding that from there we can do something great together. So in my own personal experience, working with women has been an amazing asset. And it has helped us also reach out to other women, inspire them, and help them understand this, that it's not a competition against each other. And I can even extrapolate this to the whole AI ecosystem. It's not that the startups have to compete against each other to earn contracts. Actually, by knowing each other and by understanding what each other does, then there can be bigger collaborations, bigger projects, and that we can have like a national agenda and a national direction, because we understand that we are more working together.
Thank you. Mariana, do we have a last question in the social media?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we don't have many, the time is over. So I want to thank you. All the questions that are still in the chat, I will send to the panelists, and perhaps they will kindly answer them. A final remark from Miguel, perhaps. Unfortunately, behind prejudice, there is a lot of misinformation to change this. Do you think we can have better conditions in the midterm? But a very brief answer, if you can.
Yes, I'm very optimistic about that.
Very brief.
And data-driven policymaking can enable change. Like having the visibility of the problem through these studies that were mentioned throughout the panel, and doing something about it, having first the numbers, understanding that it is a problem, and then using policy as means to act upon it, then there can be changes in the short term.
Thank you very much. Thank you again to all panelists for these important pointers towards a more egalitarian society. Your point of views have been diverse and enlightening in this subject. So thank you all, and thank you for all the participants for being here in this panel. We will now continue. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For
it
all
was
of
very
you.
interesting. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.